Okay, so that's just basically, you know, a good way of sort of leading to a build-up. Over the top of that, I've got probably a kick drum roll. Fading out with velocity, just to kind of like just build it up quite a lot, and then just before the drop, sort of drop it down to something, you know, quite nothing again to make the drop sound bigger. So if we listen to the whole sort of breakdown section here.
Yo, I feel rock, time to wind up your waist. New style because we dip on them keys. Oh gosh, freestylers mash up the place. We make the crowd jump up, so jump, jump,
It gives the drop quite a lot of impact, because, you know, even though we're kind of building the beat up, we're taking it away just before the drop. And another thing I like to do, similar sort of thing with the drums, is to kind of tease the bass line in. People like to kind of know what's coming. People go more nuts to something when they know kind of what to expect, I think. We've just got like a bounce of the bass, of the whole bass, that's the LFO bass and the top bass. Just filtering down to a high pass. And then going up again just before the end. And then I like to have, you know, something to kind of signify the drop rhythmically as well. So there's something from the original here. It's a really old crusty ska feel, but it just works. And it's from the original as well, and you kind of want to keep as much kind of elements of an original tune in as possible, I think, when you're doing a remix of a classic. So yeah, obviously there's sirens and stuff going as well, so it's all kind of old school, but it's got energy, it's got like a kind of urgency to it. Sirens and white noise effects and stuff like that, and risers as well. I've got those two risers that I showed earlier going. Second breakdown is basically an elongated version of that. I like to kind of drop things out to almost nothing. Filtering all the drums down and phasing them at the same time. Little vocal sample that we didn't have time for before. So we're going into, like, now this is where I'm kind of showing off all the samples in the tune. So it's kind of like solo time. I'm using the edit bass, which is, you know, it's only been used quite sort of sparsely in the tune, but now I get to rinse it basically. My acid sounds that I painstakingly made, and also the main samples from the tune. So we got this scratch that I haven't showed you. It sounded nothing. It didn't really sound like that when we got it. As you can see, we've recycled the sample and we've rearranged it to kind of make our own scratch pattern. Again, the velocities there aren't actually controlling the volume. It's just another EXS trick. If we go into the EXS, the velocity is not controlling the volume, it's controlling the pan. So it just adds a bit of width to it. Again, we've got like the scratch bouncing left and right rhythmically, which is nice to listen to in headphones and stuff. And then we've also got this sort of saxophone sound. It's another like really crusty old sample. We processed it with like the Waves Restoration bundle, like X Noise, X Crackle, a bit of EQ to kind of get rid of the general noise of it being sampled from a record. It had like a kick underneath it as well, I think. Like if you listen to that, it's actually got like a kick and a bass, maybe even a snare. It's got some kind of tail of a drum hit. So we EQ'd out the bottom, but not all of it, because it's actually making a bit of a nice chord. Bit of tape delay to make it gel. And then on the sampler, what we've done is we've got a little envelope to filter cut off to give it a bit of an attack and almost like a wah effect. So I've got the envelope attack decay, so staying released down there, envelope 1. That's not actually affecting the volume of the sound, it's just affecting this filter up here, which is a low pass, so get that kind of sort of sucking sound into it. Big reverbs on most of the stuff here, because we've got a lot of space to start building things up rhythmically by bringing in some of the drum elements. So I've got a hat coming in there, and I've also got like a sonic destructor kind of effect on the drums, a bit similar to what we did before, but this a bit more heavy on the ring mod. It's actually just like a trebly mess, but it's bringing in a rhythm which is going to pick up the sort of pace of the build up and get you ready for something big. And it's also filtering down. This is where things start to really kind of sort of build up to a crescendo. And it crashed! Amazing. And then on the second drop we've basically brought back the acid line that we've only had once. It was too good to just use once, so we kind of made that the kind of hype of the second. And yeah, so that's basically the essence of sort of building up and breaking down a track, and it is something that we kind of pride ourselves on in our tunes. Everyone kind of goes nuts for the breakdowns, and you know, we kind of put a lot of time into just sort of stripping things back and introducing things gradually, so that you know you kind of have a steady sort of pick up and pace like every few bars. Basically, that's pretty much all the elements of the track. And then it's time for mix down, really. I mean, I like I said before, I tend to mix down as I go. I think it's a much better way to work, but each to their own. Some people lose their vibe if they spend too long engineering stuff too much. And I used to be like that myself. But if I do need to kind of re-lick the whole mix down, I'll start with the drums, and that's where my bussing comes in quite handy, because I can just tweak the busses and get the drums at a nice level. You know, my drums mix kind of sits around there. Just kind of, there's a lot of headroom there, really. And the side chaining as well, the bass means that when I do bring the bass in, there's still quite a lot of headroom on the master. So that's generally, I mean, I think that's the key point of your mix down, is just getting the drums and bass level. Everything else kind of will sit into place if those things are sitting nicely and they're kind of treated in the right way. Like when you're dealing with tunes with vocals as well, it's always good to just remember to leave yourself a little bit more headroom, because they do unfortunately clash with a lot of sort of synth sounds and stuff if you've got that in your tune. So it's one thing to think about with your arrangement. You know, if you're bringing a vocal in, dip something out, you know, maybe roll off some of the tops of your bass if it's got a lot of tops on it. There's a couple of different things that I do on the master. If I'm sending a tune off to be mastered, I'll do relatively little on the master channel. I went for my first mastering session only just recently. Years have been putting out tunes, I've never actually been to one, and I actually realised what they do, which is take your tune, run it 6 dBs into the red through analog equipment, and then squash it all the way back down again. So when you bear that in mind, you don't really want to be doing too much to your master. What I do is kind of, I'll put like a gain on it. If my mix is peaking out a little bit, I'll put a gain on it just to bring it down, just to sort of tame the levels. And I'll probably have a limiter on it just to catch any renegade peaks at the top. It's really not doing a lot at all. Like you won't be able to hear the difference if you put it on. But just to be safe, if you put a low cut just before it, around kind of 30 Hertz, because you're not really going to get anything useful below that range. That'll just stop